name is Mark Herbert. Welcome to my podcast, The Trust Paradigm. Hopefully, we will enjoy taking this journey together. I have been a practicing human resources professional and executive for over 45 years, and I want to talk to you today about something that, quite frankly, I'm very disappointed about. And that is the fact that in that 45 years, I have not seen us make meaningful progress in how we manage and relate to our employees. When I wrote my first book in 2008, Managing Whole People, it was on the premise that exactly that we need to look at people, as humans, and recognize the fact that they are complex, that they're not two-dimensional, and that we needed to look at a different way of interacting with people and bringing them into our organizations. At that time, there wasn't a word for it. Today, we call it employee engagement. And you'll hear from a lot of people, employee engagement isn't real, it's a fad, it's a thing, and all of those things are wrong. When Gallup first started tracking engagement 30 years ago, they were able to determine that less than 30% of people would refer to themselves as being engaged, committed to the organization they were working with. So if you think about that, if you're a math person, you can do math in your head. That means less than 1 in 3 people are bringing their total selves and bringing their best and brightest to work every day. So flash forward 30 years later, and the sad thing is those statistics have not improved very much at all. We still are in a situation where less than 1 in 3 people comes to work bringing everything that they can bring. So the next question you could ask yourself is, why do we care? The Department of Labor started tracking the cost of the flip side of engagement, something they call presenteeism. And they were able to determine to the U.S. economy alone, presenteeism, as they call it, cost our economy $5 trillion a year. And that shows up in turnover, that shows up in absenteeism, that shows up in work-related injuries and healthcare costs and mental health expenses and things like that. But those are all things that are costing our economy. So if you take a look at that and say that if their statistics are correct, and I have no reason to believe that they're not, and that in fact has been going on for 30 years, take 30 times 5 trillion, and you're talking about $150 trillion in lost opportunity to the United States economy alone. And in my mind, I'm not an accountant, but $150 trillion is a lot of money. It's money that we could be using to foster world peace, to provide health care, to house the homeless, to do all kinds of things. And the upside of that is it's money that we're spending today. So this is not a tax. This is not something we're asking employers or employees to, reach into their pocket and provide more money. This is money that we're currently spending, and it needs to be fixed. People who come in to work and who are in fact engaged with you and aligned with you and see themselves as a part of your organization contribute in significant ways that would warm the heart of the coldest financial person, because the data is very, very clear that says that people who are engaged and organizations that are engaged outperform on every financial metric, from customer engagement to ROI to all of those things that we like to talk about that accountants like to look at, to customers. The other thing that they've learned very, very clearly is you will never have more engaged customers than you do employees. So how do you build engagement is the question you get a lot. And the way that you build engagement is it's hard work. And the way you start with building engagement is there's a model that my colleagues and I have been teaching now for about 25 years. And the first step in engagement is that you set clear expectations for people. They know what success is. The second is you guarantee people that they're going to get constructive feedback, that if their performance is not meeting your expectations, they're going to hear about that, and they're going to hear about it in a timely, constructive way. The third dimension of it is that you're going to move away from a discipline model to a corrective action model that says, if you're not meeting my expectations, I'm going to go into it with the most positive interpretation that maybe I didn't give you clear direction, maybe you don't have the tools, or something which is not punitive. And the intent behind our conversation is going to be to get you back on track, not to punish you. Discipline is great in the concept of a discipline. It is not great when you apply it to another human being. And then the last step, and the important step, is equitable compensation. And when I talk about equitable, don't get alarmed that I'm talking about socialism and everybody should make the same money and give all the money away. Equitable means that I pay you fairly. I pay you fairly for what you do. I pay you fairly relative to other people who are performing similar work. and you see the correlation between what I'm asking you to do and the compensation I'm giving you. Now, listening to that, you're probably thinking, well, that's pretty simple. And I would agree. And like I said, what is deeply disheartening to me is some 40, 50 years later, we're still not practicing those things in most organizations. In fact, what we are practicing is we can put lipstick on a pig, okay, but what we are doing is we are using the same scientific management model that Frederick W. Taylor created over 100 years ago. Frederick W. Taylor was an industrial engineer, and he was the father of what we call white-collar management. And Frederick W. Taylor had the premise that people are lazy and they're stupid. And so the role of management was to create structure for these lazy, stupid people. And the idea behind it is to take work and break it down into smaller and smaller pieces so it could be performed repetitively. And his timing was good because that was during the period of the Industrial Revolution where you had machinery and all being able to do things that craftsmen used to do before. The downside of that is when you take things and you break it into smaller pieces and you have it do it repetitively, people become really good at it right before they lose their mind. Okay, think about going in and doing the same thing over and over and over again without any opportunity to put any creative spin on it. The other thing that it does is it leaves a tremendous amount of intellectual capital, talents and abilities on the floor because you're not getting the best from people. But that is the model we have today. And I think the fact that, that some years later we're still managing that way is very, very disheartening. A great example for that, for me personally, is let's take a look at what happened in 2020. 2020, we had the COVID pandemic. In a lot of cases, people began working from home, and they were fine. And businesses didn't collapse, and we were able to continue to do things. Now, all of a sudden, 1 in 3 CEOs is pounding a table saying everybody has to come back to work. Why? I do believe that there is a place that having people together in an office environment works, but I don't think it's necessary in all places. And I think that's why we're getting the tremendous amount of resistance that we are, is that people are saying, we showed you that if you give me the right tools, if you give me clear expectations, if you give me good leadership, I can perform the work. You don't have to be here micromanaging me on a day-to-day basis. So why would we go back to a model that's clearly been demonstrated to be out of date and inappropriate? The engagement difference is something that if you're not using it, you're just leaving a tremendous degree of opportunity on the table for your business and for your employees. And so that is what we have committed ourselves to doing, is to show people a different model, a different way. And the nice thing is, over my 45-year career, I've had a chance to try this model in everything from manufacturing to ecotourism to financial services. So anybody that tells you that it has to be in a factory or something to work, they're wrong. Okay, I've seen it work. The fundamental thing that you have to have in order to make it work is you have to have good leadership. Another unpleasant statistic I will share with you is that studies demonstrate that 60% of people who move into leadership roles for one reason. And I'm gonna share a little secret with you. It's not to make the world a better place. People move into leadership roles for one reason. They want to make more money. So think about it. These are the people you are entrusting to lead your organizations, and the only reason that they're moving into that is to make more money. So that explains a large reason why we have an engagement problem, because you have people stepping into the role for the wrong reason. We need to relook at our entire leadership model. When I hire leaders, I look for a series of characteristics. The first characteristic is, of course, you have to have the technical skills to be able to do the job. But those are what in poker we would call table stakes. That's the minimum threshold. The second thing that you have to have if you're going to be an effective leader is you have to have emotional intelligence. And I want to be clear that emotional intelligence doesn't mean you're a nice person, or emotional intelligence means you understand the impact that you can have on people, your behavior and environment all can have on people. The third level of intelligence you need to have is social intelligence. To put it in shorthand, can you read the room? Okay, walking in a situation, can you see how people are relating to you and how you're relating to them? Then when you add those things up, you actually have true leaders. And those are things that in some cases can be taught, but in a lot of cases, they're not being built into recruitment and selection. Over the course of my career, I have probably hired 300 or 400 executives at least. And I can tell you, I have never seen an executive fail because they weren't smart enough or because they didn't have a good enough resume. I've seen a bunch of them fail because they were missing things on that list that I just gave you. You can be really smart, but if you don't have emotional intelligence, you don't have social intelligence, you're not a leader, you're a boss. One very quick way, when I'm being a little bit sarcastic, I say to people, if you look behind you and there's nobody behind you, you're not a leader, you're just a boss. So make sure that, if you're a leader, you have followers. So we change the models and we change engagement. So today we talked a lot about employee engagement and why it's important and why you need it in your organization if you don't have it. Next time on the Trust Paradigm, we're going to be talking about the foundation. Looking forward to seeing you again.